Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And all right, well, last week was a great one, Shane. We came off the Maui Invitational title, Arizona beating ASU. I didn't have a voice. You know, for the most part, it was a win-win for all, except this week, not so much. We thought Utah would be a breeze. It wasn't. But hey, at least the women are undefeated. So look on the bright side, and a lot to talk about this week with a big game against Indiana coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'm actually not shocked by the way the week went. I'm not telling you I would have predicted them they would have lost to Utah, but all things considered, I mean, a lot of teams, it feels like more than usual, are struggling early in the season. Like a lot of really good teams. Indiana, who Arizona faces in a week, lost by 15 to unranked Rutgers, I believe it was, earlier today. We're recording this on a Sunday evening. Creighton lost at home to Nebraska. And even before that, you know, the previous week, there were like 7 teams ranked ahead of Arizona that lost. So a lot of teams struggling early. It looks like there's not really a dominant team out there. And Arizona, I think, is maybe they, come down to earth a little bit, come back to, back from Hawaii and I thinking that they're, king of the crop, or was it king of the, I forget what the saying is. Anyway, thinking that they're very, very good. And they think they still are. But they got smacked in the mouth at Utah. I'm not surprised they weren't able to put it all together against Cal either, although they only turned the ball over 5 times, so that's positive. But defense needs a lot of work, and I'm sure we'll get into that here shortly.
Yeah, we're going to have a national champion on with us, a guy that we've had on before, AJ Bramlett. AJ Bramlett, easy for me to say. Geez.
We're both on a roll already, aren't we?
Yeah, right. AJ Bramlett going to join us for the second segment. Looking forward to catching up with him. We haven't had him on, when's the last time? 9 months ago almost, Shane?
It was the Sweet 16 before they played. Then Arizona played the Sweet 16 against Houston, which was our most listened to and viewed episode in over 2 years of Wildcat Country.
But as you noted before we get into everything, last week's episode as well. Thank you to everyone for downloading and viewing that one, because that one was right up there as well.
That was a good week. It's a good week, and people are back from vacation, and we had a Territorial Cup win and a Maui win. So yeah, and I'm sure our guy Jeff Dean, who's a very knowledgeable guy, had a lot to do with that as well, and so he should take some of the credit for that too.
Absolutely. Now it is time for our first segment, Buy or Sell, which is presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Check them out, iceshaker.com. You can get one of these beauties that I'm holding up or what Shane is drinking out of. If you're watching the video stream, just go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C. You'll get $5 off your purchase, and you can buy one of these great Wildcat Country ice shakers, and it's a great holiday gift for you or maybe somebody else that is a U of A fan or somebody that listens to this program. So
both, all the above.
And hopefully we can do a giveaway at some point here.
We're working on that. Okay. I have been in touch with the founder of Ice Shaker, Chris Gronkowski, on doing a giveaway. So we'll have more details next week.
Okay, awesome. Great. All right, buy or sell, Shane. Number 1, concern level heading into Indiana, 8.5. Buy or sell out of 10.
Out of 10, I don't know. I don't know if I put a number on it. I'm not trying to duck the question, but I'm not really concerned. I mean, look, if Arizona's performance at Utah came after they won their first 3 games against a bunch of no-name teams, then I think we'd all be like, okay, they're just not very good this year. But we know better. We saw it in Maui. They beat 2 very good teams and Cincinnati, and they looked the part of a team that can make another NCAA tournament run. But it's early in the season. There's a lot of new parts. Eventually, they were going to miss the guys they had last year. And look, they had some clunkers last year too. Not a lot of them, but I mean, they had a couple of games in there where they got blown out at UCLA, and then they came home and did not look good against ASU, which was not a good team last year. So it happens. It happens to every team. It's happened to a lot of teams already this season. With that said, the defense and the depth, I know we'll get into both a little bit more here. They both concern me for different reasons. I think that I don't know if I want to get into this now or later. I might save it for later, but my concern level isn't that high. I think if it continues more than a couple of games, I mean, this really is a marathon, not a sprint, Eric. It's over 30 games. We're still very early into the season. They're 6-1. They have a couple wins over ranked teams. The loss at Utah,
7-1.
7-1. Excuse me. I don't need to count Cal in there. 7-1. The loss at Utah, it's not great, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So you come back and you play a good, tough game against Indiana, or a competitive game against Indiana, and people are going to forget all about this.
I'm going to sell the concern level being 8.5. I would put the concern level considerably lower than that. And I'll tell you why. because a lot of these teams lose games that just make no sense. Look at North Carolina, for example. They were preseason number one. Now, you know how I feel about preseason rankings, especially in football, but they're a bunch of BS, right? North Carolina. Now, we're recording this on Sunday night when the new poll will come out on Monday. North Carolina will not be ranked with, I think, either 3 or 4. I think 4 losses now. They have 4 losses. They're not going to be ranked. But you never know when it comes to the tournament and whatnot. It just, we've seen Michigan State tonight lost at home to Northwestern, who, is not that great in basketball. I think they just got killed by Pitt at home by 30 earlier in the week. You just don't know. So at this point, I'm going to throw the concern level way down. But let me say this. If you lose to Indiana and you lose the following Saturday to Tennessee, I'm concerned. I'm going to put the concern at 8.5. You got to win at least one of those games.
Here's where I'm at, Eric. Short-term concern is low for me. If you want to put a number on it, maybe 4 or 5. Okay. Long-term, I think more and more about the idea that Tommy Lloyd has a very exciting style of basketball. Arizona in Ken Palm is number 1 in adjusted tempo in the entire country. Number 3, I think, in adjusted offense still, even after the last couple of games. They're in the 50s in defense. And typically you had to be a top 20 team in both offense and defense in Ken Palm to be successful in the NCAA tournament. Arizona was almost there last year. They were just outside that on defense. But I feel like come tournament time, the defensive-minded, slow, walk the ball up the court kind of basketball is more effective. We saw that when Arizona played Houston. We saw that. I mean, Virginia's had success in the NCAA tournament in that regard. I'm going to be very random here, Eric, but one game that stuck in my mind for over 30 years. Do you remember Loyola Marymount, the Paul Westhead teams that scored 100-plus points over 30 years ago? Yeah. They made a deep NCAA tournament run. They were an 11 seed. They won a couple games. They by well over 100 points. And then they ran into number 7 seed Alabama, which had just upset number 2 seed Arizona the weekend before. And Alabama plays a completely different that boring defensive-minded style. And they imposed their will on Loyola Marymount. The final score was 62-60. Now, Loyola Marymount actually got to 62. They won the game. But Alabama forced Loyola Marymount to play their style. And I feel like come the NCAA tournament time, that kind of style is going to generally win out. We saw that with Houston and Arizona last season. So I know I'm getting kind of big picture here, long term, but it's something I wanted to talk about because I don't know if Tommy Lloyd's style of basketball is necessarily built for March. I think it's a great regular season style, but longer term, I'm not sure it is a recipe for success come NCAA tournament time.
Fair. Okay. We'll talk more about that going forward. Number 2, Shane, Arizona's bench should be considered a weakness as of now, buy or sell.
At this point, I think you'd have to buy it. We saw against Cal, they played 7 guys in the first half. And that was it. And they sprinkled in a little Henry Visar in the second half, and that was about it. And that's a big change from the beginning of the Maui Invitational when you saw a pretty solid 9-man rotation with Cedric Henderson, Adama Ball, Henry Visar, and Kylan Boswell. Every coach shores up his bench eventually, but you want to see a little bit more rotation than that. And I think it's a reminder, you got a lot of young and experienced guys coming off the bench with Visar, who everyone who we've had on has sung his praises, but he's still young, very inexperienced in the United States anyway, the college basketball level. Adama Ball got a little bit of playing time last year, but doesn't have a lot of experience either. Kylan Boswell still very young. So I think all of those things you have to remember and consider that it might take a little time for these guys to get into a groove. But yeah, it didn't look like depth was going to be a concern on this team. And I think long-term, it probably won't be. I think, 8 or 9 guys is probably going to be okay. And I think we'll talk to AJ Bramlett about that. But yeah, as of now, someone tweeted a couple of weeks ago that the depth was a concern and I kind of brushed it off. But now I'm thinking, yeah, it definitely is a concern at this point in time.
So Cedric Henderson's been very good for Arizona. It's a nice transfer from Campbell.
Yep.
With that said, the rest of the bench has been a disaster. Visar doesn't look ready. Kylan Boswell especially doesn't look ready. And Adama Ball just has not taken the next step that we all were expecting. So as of now, it's a major concern. And if it doesn't improve, then Arizona is not going to last long in the tournament. And they're not going to be successful before that. in the Pac-12. They're not going to be as successful as we would hope. Let me say that. The bench has to give, a good 45 minutes a game, let's say. I'm just throwing that number out there arbitrarily, maybe more than that.
You don't want to see the starters have to play more than 30 on a given night.
But you can't do that every night. Now,
no.
Listen, Arizona has plenty of time off. This is not the NBA. So they have, five full days off before they play, Indiana. With that said, those guys in practice need to step it up. I mean, Adama Ball, Boswell, and Visar especially. But there has to be another big man that steps up off the bench. I mean, I guess Henderson's a wing, but I'd love to see, I don't know if Borovikinen is, or however you pronounce it.
Borovikinen, I think, is how Bruce Pascoe.
Borovikinen, yeah.
I'm gonna go with that.
I mean, I'd like to see him get more time. I don't know if he's redshirting or whatnot, but I want to see something more.
Him and Dylan Anderson are still, guys who are, I guess, Tommy Lloyd says aren't ready for prime time yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, a little concerned about that. All right, number 3, Shane, real simple. Pelle Larsson, buy or sell?
Long term, I'll still buy him, but you got to sell right now because we've talked about in the offseason, and we were hardly the only ones who talked about how much he needed to step up. And you could easily see him turning into an all Pac-12 selection this season, and he hasn't come close to it, at least not in most games. I was thinking back the other day to his break. I feel like his breakout game was the game that you were at, Eric, in Tempe when they played ASU. And I don't remember he was their leading scorer, but he was up there and he had a great game. Yeah. And I think we both thought going into the season, that would be more the norm with him. And it still could be. And, with Tubelis and Ballo playing as well as they have, he hasn't needed to do as much, but now that deficiency, whatever you want to call it, has become more glaring now that they've struggled in a couple of games. So long-term, I think he'll be very good. But yeah, for now, I'm going to sell his play of late. I'm going to buy him long-term though. I think he'll be fine.
I'm going to buy him long-term as well. I will ask AJ about this. Is it a confidence issue with Pelle, or is he just not the same player? I'm still buying. I said he would be all Pac-12 before the season. Maybe that was getting a little carried away. Ballo looks like he will be, and Tubelis looks like he will be. Maybe Courtney Ramey, maybe Kirk Kriisa, potentially. Larson, not so much, but I think he will rebound. Cedric Henderson's done a nice job kind of filling in for him and, picking up that slack. So that's good to see. But I'd like to see Pelle step up.
Well, all right, and real quick, Eric, just speaking of defense, Pelle Larsson was in the game late a lot of times last year for Arizona. Sometimes replacing, like Mather, not necessarily Matherin, but other guys who could score a lot more. So they're going to need his defense as well late in games. So hopefully on both sides of the ball, he picks it up a bit.
All right. So we're recording this on Sunday night before this next week's rankings are coming out. I'm going to go with number 4 here, Shane, the women's team, who has not played any good team this season for the most part, but is undefeated, should be ranked higher in their poll than the men are this week. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell it just because, like you said, they just really haven't played anyone yet. I think considering their level of competition, they're ranked probably where they should be. I think they're better than that, or at least they're going to be better than that. I think they're still trying to carve out an identity. They have a lot of new pieces this year and a lot of talented pieces. I think they're a more talented team than they were last year. I actually don't think that's even a question. But with freshmen and transfers coming in, I think they're still trying to find an identity, figure out especially who's going to take over a game late. I think that was an issue with Arizona last season with Ari McDonald gone, because you can't, it's almost impossible to replace what she did. But you're trying to figure out who's going to be that player. I think Shayna Pellington and Jade LaVille, the latter of whom had a fantastic game against New Mexico. I think she set a school record for 3-point percentage. She was like 6 of 7 from 3-point range in that game. The transfer from ASU. You don't necessarily have to have just a superstar, but you want someone who late in the game, it's tied, you're down by a point. Who's going to take that shot? Who's going to take over? And I think Arizona's kind of still feeling that out. Kate Reese is fantastic. She returned, but I don't know if she's that person necessarily. And I think kind of like Tommy Lloyd, Adia Barnes is still figuring out that rotation, feeling it out, and she's had an opportunity to do that. So to answer your question in a very long-winded fashion, I think that the men should probably be ranked a little bit higher just on their body of work, even with their loss. But I think the women's team in due time will reach the top 10 sooner rather than later.
Yes. Now I'm going to agree with that. I do think the men should be ranked higher. So the women, should not be at this point just because they haven't played anybody. Now 7-0 is 7-0. It's great. One thing that I have a concern about the women's team, albeit they're undefeated. I'm just looking at the box score against New Mexico from Sunday. Arizona got 14 minutes off the bench from 4 players. Basically, they had 5 or 6 players who played more than 25 minutes. And then similar to the men, they're playing with a really short bench. Now, Helena Puello off the bench. Listen to the stat line. She had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 steals. I mean, really,
that's Andre Iguodala kind of numbers.
Yeah, it really is. But you're playing, Maya Nagy got 1 minute. I want to see more. They're great. I want to see more.
That's what I'm talking about, because what Adia Barnes does in terms of the minutes on this team from game to game is interesting. I'm not saying she doesn't know what she's doing. I'm sure she does.
Of course.
But it seems kind of all over the place. I feel like she's kind of like doing a lot of trial and error right now, a lot of tinkering with what's the most ideal, optimal lineup with this team. And I don't think she knows yet. But they're winning in the meantime, and that's fine. But, when they play UCLA and Stanford, when Stanford comes around especially, they got to get that shored up. So I think this is a team that's, in terms of roster turnover, it's the most dramatic that Arizona's had in several years on the women's side. So it's going to take a little while to figure out. But Maya not seeing any time surprised me. She's been a key contributor. Still angry that, by the way, that we had her on our show and I lost the recording, and she was great. We'll have to have her on again at some point. But but I don't think the bench is a problem so much as I think Adia is still tinkering with the rotation, and I think she'll get it figured out.
Coming up next, let's talk to AJ Bramlett about everything about the men's team, his thoughts on what he has seen thus far this season. And then in our third segment, we'll talk a little bit of football here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact, when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, it's a man who needs no introduction to any Wildcat basketball fans. He's a national champion, and there's only one team that can say that. That is AJ Bramlett. And AJ, we're glad to have you back on the show. The last time we had you, we were talking about the run-up to last year's NCAA tournament. Obviously, that didn't work out so well. And one of the questions that I had asked you was, what does last year's team, did it remind you of your 97 team? Looking at this year's team, does it remind you of any of the Wildcat teams that you played on in terms of their style or the excitement they have playing the game?
I think they're kind of a unique team, to be honest. I mean, I think the style of play that they've, been playing so far this year has been exciting. I mean, outside of the Utah game and today against Cal a little bit, but the style that just pushing the ball. So they play even faster than we did. We were one of the highest scoring teams in the country every single year when I was there. But now, I mean, it's just like, that's even on steroids. So, it's a fun brand of basketball to watch. The one thing that I love about it is the big guys are so involved. The big guys are decision makers in Tommy's offense. They do a great job running the court, and the guys find them for easy baskets. They've been holding it down all year long. Umar and Azulis have been playing some great basketball this year, which I've really enjoyed watching those guys develop and really come on. But overall, I think that this team is. We got a long way to go with these guys. They're young. It's a mix of, some veteran guys and a lot of new guys. So, success is going to come. There's going to be some stumbles here and there, but, I still fully believe in this team and being able to make a deep run, as we get to the end of the season and tournament time.
Yeah, AJ, thanks again for joining us. I was mentioning to you before we started that last time you joined us before their Arizona Sweet 16 game against Houston, that ill-fated game, it was our best episode ever in terms of viewership, in terms of listeners. So we appreciate that, and hopefully we can bottle that up again going into this year's NCAA tournament. Before I talk about the team's recent struggles the last couple of games, I want to go back to Maui. And that 3-game run that they had of wins over Cincinnati, then a couple of ranked teams, San Diego State and Creighton. Some of us were surprised that this team gels together so well so early, especially after losing so much talent to the NBA. Were you surprised? What were your thoughts overall in that tournament?
I thought that I thought we had a good chance to win the tournament. I said that before they went over there. But I think just like you said, the thing that's been kind of surprising is how quickly, Courtney Ramey and Cedric Henderson Jr. have really meshed into this team and become, integral parts of it. They fit in to Tommy's style perfectly. They brought, a lot to the table right away. And, you get that obviously with guys who are experienced, but I thought it would take a little bit more time for them to play at that high level. And now they've, as you said, they've kind of fallen back a little bit, but we've seen what they can do against really, really good competition and the bright lights. That's the biggest, tournament, early season tournament that there is. It's during the Thanksgiving weekend, everybody's watching, and they played very, very well there. So I think which team are we? Are we that team or the team we've seen, the past two games? It's probably somewhere in the middle right now, but it's good to see that we can have that gear that we're able to, reach to in crucial games and be able to come out with victories. So I was proud of them.
Yeah, and a lot of very good teams have already stumbled earlier in the season, including Indiana, who Arizona faces next weekend. Creighton just lost at home to Nebraska. So a lot of great, seemingly very good teams have stumbled early. Do you just chalk that up to just, growing pains and just, things that happen over the course of the season? Or do you think this could be a longer term problem for Arizona?
No, I don't think so. I think, and people kind of discount this, but going to Maui and traveling there and doing, being there, it's beautiful. You're, in a place that's awesome and you're enjoying it, but it drains you too. Like it really does, the travel and everything. Like especially for a team that has a mix of young guys, and older guys, that can take a toll on you. And it takes a toll on you not only physically and mentally. I know it's early in the season, but it's just a lot going on. I mean, even with school and things that go on off the court, there's a lot of things that go into, student athletes' preparedness and being ready to play, and it can affect you. And I think they looked like at Utah, they looked tired. I know they were off for a while and they didn't have their rhythm, but they looked tired to me. So, I think it's just part of the process, man. This is a really good team. We have a lot of talent. But they're not a veteran team by any means yet. And, we're going to need the young guys to step up and play better as we progress. But overall, I think, it's par for the course. Just we're playing pretty good basketball overall. Let's enjoy it. And these games matter. Yeah. And we've won the ones that have mattered the most so far. And then we'll see, how we progress as we go, deeper into the Pac-10 and then or Pac-12. And also, getting the matchup against Indiana and Tennessee are also two, really good opportunities for us as well for resume builders.
AJ, one thing that, I have a concern about, and Shane and I talked about this earlier in the show, is the bench, which has outside of Cedric Henderson has been essentially non-existent. If you were Tommy Lloyd, would you try to integrate these guys more, or would you continue to keep a very short bench as we saw him do in the Cal game?
I think you got to let, the guys get opportunities to play, but also he's trying to win. So, I think guys like, I think Kylan by the end of the year is going to be really solid for us. He's been playing sparingly minutes now, but he's 17 years old. And I think he's been playing well for what situation he's been in this year. I think Adama Ball is going to break out here pretty soon. He's kind of been up and down. He's had some good spots, throughout the season so far, but I think by the end of the year, he's going to be a really consistent player for us. And then Visars has been, doing well. He played hard. He's still learning. Obviously, he's young as well. But I like what he brings to the table with his energy and his length and the things that he can do around the basket and block shots. Those guys, we're going to need them, obviously, if we're going to make a significant run, into the end of the Pac-12 and then into the tournament. But I think they'll get there. I think one of the things that Tommy and his staff do really well is develop guys. And so you're going to see guys jump from where they were at the beginning of this season. And by the end, they're going to be completely different players because they're putting in the work. They know what they're doing. And I think you'll see that as we progress throughout the season. But right now it's been tough. It's been like a 7-man rotation. The starters, if they don't play well, there's not much, to supplement that. But, overall, I think they're going to be all right in the long run.
If there's a concern in the starting lineup, it's Pelle Larsson, who I thought personally would be all Pac-12 this year, and he certainly doesn't look like it. What do you notice when watching him? What do you think is the issue? Do you think it's a temporary thing, or do you think the guy's just simply lost confidence?
The last couple of games, he's looked a little bit down, man, to me, just in his body language and things like that. But everyone's down when you're missing shots. You can't put it in the basket, especially from the 3-point line. So, Pella, I think, he's going to get out of it. He'll get out of it. He's a veteran player. He played great this summer against really super high level competition, in a European competition, and he's due for a breakout. I think he's maybe putting more pressure on himself. Because people it's different expectations for him this year than it was last year. And sometimes that weighs on you, early in the season, especially when you're not playing as well as you think you should. But he's going to get through it. And, he's going to be a really key player for us. And I think he'll get to that level that we expect him to get, as we move through the Pac-12 a little bit more. And you'll see him break out here soon. And maybe against Indiana, this weekend. That'd be a perfect game for him, to step up and have a, 17 to 20 point game. And he's capable of doing it. And I think he will.
Another guy, AJ, who Arizona really needed to take on a bigger role this season was Azuolas Tubelis, and he's done that. Had another 20-point game as we're recording this Sunday night, so it was earlier today against Cal. Your thoughts on him overall, especially after he had a tough NCAA tournament. A lot of criticism came his way. It looks like he's put that past him, and he's even better than he was last season. Just what are your overall thoughts on him through 7 games?
I think that, that game last year really, you could tell that he took it to heart. And he went, he got stronger. He's been playing more physical. He's been playing better defense this year. And then he's just he runs the court, probably the best running big man in the country, like a lot of people have been saying lately, which I love to see. But his finishing has been great. The positioning and just his aggression on the offensive end and his passing as well. And his big-to-big passing with Umar has been exceptional this year. And, he's a smart player and he's crafty. And, if you don't put a body on him, he's going to lock you in there, catch the ball and finish. He finishes so quickly that as soon as he catches, he's already putting the ball in the basket, which is really hard for big guy defenders to defend against, because he catches it and he's already turning once he has you locked in and scoring. That's a special thing. Not a lot of guys can do that and find the basket that quickly and be that effective. And it's good. I'm glad to see that for him, because he's a hell of a player. And, he didn't end the season last year like we wanted to, and he took a lot of blame for that loss, but it wasn't his fault. He got in the lab and came back and is killing it this year. And I think he'll continue to do that.
I have 2 more questions for you. First one is just about international players in general. And Tommy Lloyd is big on bringing a lot of those guys in. Henry Visar is another guy who we've talked to with several people who they think he's going to be an NBA talent eventually. Yeah. How long do you think it takes for the international guys to really integrate into the American college basketball game? And is that something that's changed over the years?
I think it's easier for them now than it was before. You know what I mean? Just because, they played in so many, international competitions and different things, and, kind of prepared more for it than they would have, in the past. But it's still, the game is faster. It's just a different game than European game. And, I played in Europe for years, and it's similar in the way that they play basketball and sharing the ball and moving and ball movement and player movement and that stuff. But the physicality and the speed and the quickness of the game is totally different. So you see guys, it takes them a little bit of time. Sometimes some guys come in and are exceptional right away. But I think with a lot of the European guys, it just takes them a little bit to get used to it, man, because it's just a lot faster. It's a lot faster game. And so, I think Henry's been doing a good job. He's getting in there. I think he's getting a lot more comfortable. I think he has a lot more in his game that he hasn't shown yet. And he's just playing his role to what Tommy wants him to do. And I think what he's comfortable doing, but he's got a lot more in his bag. Like he can shoot the ball really well. He can dribble a little bit. He can pass. It's just that he's kind of filling his, role right now for what they need. But I think you're going to see him break out and show a lot more and be like, oh man, I didn't know he could do that, because I've seen him do it. It's in there. It's just going to take some time for him to get comfortable and confident to bring that out.
Very excited to see that, hopefully sooner rather than later. Last question for you, AJ, and this is an area where I want you to convince me that I'm wrong. It's something that I brought up before, because Arizona plays a very fast-paced, exciting style of basketball under Tommy Lloyd. But I feel like come NCAA tournament time, that defensive-minded, slow, plodding, walk the ball up the court pace is actually better. We saw that with Houston last season. Virginia plays that style as well. Tell me why I'm wrong, because I feel like Arizona, they're number one, or they're toward the top in Ken Palm in offensive efficiency, but they're like 50 something in defensive efficiency. Tell me why that take from me is wrong, please.
I mean, I can't say that you're not right. I mean, I think that, you're going to have to blend styles like that, because, all the fast basketball is played and it's beautiful to watch and everything. But you're right that once you get to the tournament, things just slow down. It's just the way that it is every single year. And so defense is going to have to carry us there. You know what I mean? And I think we're doing a better job this year scoring in the half court, even maybe than we did last year, and having more options to do that, especially with Umar, the way that he's playing, and Zoo, like we can get them the ball in positions to score in the half court a little bit easier than we did last year and count on them to do that. But defense is the key. And the defense for this team, and that's something why we've struggled the last 2 games, is the defense has been awful. The communication hasn't been good. Guys just didn't seem like they were communicating the right way. Guys are out of spots and, double teaming guys and leaving guys open. And so, that's part of just the progression of becoming a good defensive team. But defense is going to be the key for this team to be able to make a deep run no matter what, because we're going to have to get stops and we're going to have to count on, defense and rebounding are the 2 things that we're going to have to do if we want to make a deep run. And the defense definitely, has looked really good at times this year, but also, the past 2 games hasn't looked as good. So that's just a work in progress, especially when you have young guys that haven't played together as much. That's going to happen. And Tommy will get them right, man, in the long run. But defense is key. You're right. Like the style of game is definitely going to slow down once we get to Pac-12 tournament time.
All right, AJ, 2 last questions for you. Shane and I talked about this last week. Do you believe that Tommy Lloyd right now is a top 5 coach in America?
I do. I absolutely do. Because if I was a high school recruit, there's no other program that I'd want to go to. I mean, just because of the style of play, because of the way that Tommy coaches and truly cares about the development of guys. I think he cares about them personally. I think he's developed a family atmosphere, at Arizona really quickly. The alumni is great. Like in my opinion, and I'm biased, of course, but like I would want to go play for Tommy if I was a top high school recruit right now, and play with the guys that they have there. They're all good guys, and we play a fun brand of basketball. Who wouldn't want to play an up-tempo, pace where you have freedom to play and the coach believes in you and he'll deal with some of your mistakes without without killing you, getting on your back every mistake. So I think that Arizona is the best place, and Tommy's done a heck of a job so far. Obviously, people are going to expect success and Final Fours and things like that. But as far as the building and kind of the bones of the program, I think we're in perfect position right now.
All right, and just be honest with Shane and I throwing you on the spot here. I love to ask this question. What is the ceiling for this team this year, in your opinion?
I think second weekend, in the tournament is doable. Just because, we have, and I've looked and I've watched almost every team in college basketball this year. I haven't seen a team that, I'm terrified of, for us to play. And it's been like that in other years where you're like, damn, those guys are really, really good. Like they're head and shoulders above everybody else. I just haven't seen a team like that this year. So I think it's going to count on how teams develop, how much better you get during the year. And for a lot of these teams, and I see us talent wise, we can match up with anybody. It's just having, us get better on the defensive end, take care of the turnovers and have the bench develop really for us to have a chance. But I'd take us against almost anybody, no matter what, and tournament time, we're going to do it, man. I think it's going to be a good year for us.
There's nobody that we have on that has the credentials of one AJ Bramlett. Great to talk with you once again, national champion, and just great insight. So thanks again for joining Shane and I guarantee that we'll have you on again throughout the season. Thanks again, AJ.
All right, guys, appreciate you.
If you're looking to add value to your sports cards, you've got to check out dtsportscards.com. They're an authorized dealer for PSA, which means you'll get great prices on your submissions if you go through them. And for just $2 a card, DT Sports Cards will take a close look at each card you submit and let you know whether it's worth grading. I just submitted some high-end hockey cards. They took a very close look, said they're good to go, and they all earned a PSA 10 grade, which tripled the value of each card. DT Sports Cards is located right here in Arizona. They provide quick, personalized service through email or direct messages. Find them online at dtsportscards.com and check them out on Instagram at dt_sportscards.
Want to thank AJ Bramlett for joining us. Great to catch up with him and great analysis as well. Now, we don't have picks this week, Shane, for the most part. But this segment is still brought to you by our friends at DT Sports Cards, and you have some interesting things to share about our new sponsor.
Well, they just keep kicking butt. I mean, look, we don't bring sponsors on unless we like the product, okay? The ice shaker is phenomenal. It really does keep your drinks cold for a long time. Yeah. I haven't tried a hot beverage. I still need to do that. But anyway, And then DT Sports Cards, the reason I thought of Dave, who runs DT Sports Cards and is a local guy here in Arizona, the reason I thought of them as a sponsor is because he's done tremendous work in terms of the cards that I send in to get graded by PSA. He's a licensed PSA dealer. I send them in. He tells me which cards I should send in, and he, just as importantly, which cards I shouldn't. So this recent order, I had like 26, 27 cards. He said, yeah, you shouldn't send these in. They're not going to grade well. So we kicked those out of the submission. The 21 cards he did send in, 19 of the 21 got gem mint 10s.
Wow.
And only 2 got 9s. So fantastic. I mean, that's if you're looking to, if you collect to just collect, who cares? But if you collect to try to make a little money on the side, and I do a little of both to be honest about it, this helps maximize your value. So just $2 a card extra. He looks at $2 a card extra for him to look at the cards and give you his thoughts on whether you should send it in or not. So a phenomenal collection. When I get it back this week, I'm going to show off some of the cards on our next episode. But DT Sports Cards, check them out. DTSportsCards.com, Instagram at DT_sportscards. If you're a collector, you want to send some cards into PSA, you will not be disappointed. Go check out Dave. He does great work.
All right. Bonus question from our buy or sell. I'm asking it in this segment, Shane. You don't know what I'm going to ask. It is football related. This is something that came up on Twitter earlier last week. Do you believe, or buy or sell, Arizona should reduce the capacity at Arizona Stadium? And my rationale for asking this question, and somebody mentioned this, I don't remember who it was on Twitter, is that less capacity equals more demand. I'd rather have a sellout at 45,000 than 7,000 empty seats. Buy or sell that Arizona should consider reducing the capacity at Arizona Stadium?
I'll sell that they should do it any more than they already have. I mean, they're already down to 51,000, which is down.
You're right. It used to be 56, 57. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in Tempe, ASU reduced theirs from like 75 to about 50 some odd thousand.
Yeah, but they've actually made that stadium a lot nicer.
Yeah. No, they did. But no, I don't think so. I think we've seen that Arizona can still sell out that stadium at the current rate. We saw that against Oregon. Against ASU, it was very, very close. So, and I think their average attendance this past year was 44,000. Now, the Washington State game was a debacle. I'll give you that. And a lot of, and North Dakota State, they depended on a lot of North Dakota State fans to fill up those seats. So you have to consider those things, plus the fact that it was just a really good home slate. But no, could I wrap my head around getting down to 45,000? Maybe. But I think that if the team wins, and it's like I said, Arizona's football fans behave like Phoenix sports fans do in general. The team wins, they'll show up. And if Arizona gets off to a hot start next season, 3-0, 4-0, they won't have a problem selling out against whoever they play. So I'm going to sell it. Would I be crushed if they brought it down to 45, 46,000? No, I just don't think it's necessary.
All right. I actually think I probably would, because then they could raise ticket prices, increase demand. The one thing that I look at, just the construction of the stadium, and this is totally random that we're talking about this now, that I believe it's on the east side. If my direction, is it the west? Is the west side? Yeah, the west side's the one with the tier. It's that third deck. Like, who reasonably wants to buy tickets up there if they weren't cheap? Like, it's not easy to get to. Like, at least on the east side, you have it's straight up. Okay, it's a long ways, but I mean, on the west side, like that third deck, I understand they added it to, like, could we get however many million and reconstruct that side of the stadium? Because that just doesn't, to me, have long-term, like, it just doesn't seem like long-term viability. Nobody wants to sell out and sit that high up, as far as I'm concerned.
Do we know what
the Arizona football?
Do we know what the average seating capacity is for the Pac-12 schools? Like, because I feel like I'm just thinking about, like, Research Stadium, I think, has less than Arizona. Washington State Stadium has less, but not all of them do.
All right, so Outson Stadium, which is a big one, Shane, is at 54.
Okay.
So Arizona's around 51. ASU's 54. Cal is like 62. Colorado's 50. Oregon's 54. Oregon State is 26.4.
Which is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Stanford Stadium is 50.4. UCLA is the Rose Bowl's big, 92 and change. LA Memorial Coliseum is too big, 77.5. Utah's 51.4. Washington is 70, and Washington State is about 33. Arizona doesn't need 51,000.
I feel like 45 to 50 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, I think so
where
too. Yeah, I think so too. I obviously money is tight, especially with NIL. You got to pay guys to do that. I'd like to see at some point in the next 15 years some kind of reconstruction of the west side of Arizona Stadium. Just saying that, and I would reduce the capacity. And you look at Oregon State when they're good. Washington State's good. They're selling out. You can charge more for your tickets. Just a thought. Okay. We'll talk about the transfer portal real fast, Shane. Thus far on Sunday night, Jackson Turner and Keon Bars from the defense are gone. Jamari Joyner from the offense, no surprise. There's going to be a lot of movement this week. We will obviously talk about it on next week's show. Just in general, buy or sell the transfer portal in college football. Like it, hate it.
Well, as a program that desperately needs transfers and benefited from it immensely last year, I'll buy it because it benefited my program. So I don't think that players should have to sit out a year arbitrarily. Like if it's their second time making that decision, then sure. But no, I'm okay with it. Losing Jackson Turner, I think is a bit of a surprise. I thought, Keon Bars, I don't know. But Jed Fish said at his press conference after the ASU game, a couple of days after that, he said that there's going to be a lot of turnover, and he said after that things should, in his words, mellow out, and that there won't be as much after this season. But there was still going to be quite a bit this season, and looks like he was right. And there's probably going to be more shoes that are going to drop there. I'm confident enough based on what's happened already that Arizona will fill those gaps effectively with top talent. And it's also possible that some of these guys are leaving because they know what's coming in.
Right.
Bars and Turner specifically, like they don't want to spend their final year possibly being on the bench and having to compete with that. So
sure.
At least I prefer to think more that way as a fan. We'll see. But Jed Fish actually, as we're recording this Sunday night, he tweeted a couple of his gifts that suggest that more transfers are coming in. So I think they'll be fine. Losing Jackson Turner, who was their leading tackler this past seain, is a blow. Getting Jerry Roberts back was good.
Yeah, it's great. Seventh year. Wow, it's crazy.
But losing,
football, yeah.
But and the other part of that, Eric, is Johnny Nathan's going to get more of his guys in, and hopefully that was as big a part of the problem as anything with the defense this past season is just that disconnect between the coach and the players, and the more of his guys that he gets in, hopefully the better they'll get.
Who made the better hire, Shane? ASU with Kenny Dillingham or Colorado with Deion Sanders?
Oh, that's a good one. They're so different. I'm longer term. I think ASU. I think Kenny Dillingham could have longer term success there. Yep. I feel like if Deion Sanders, either way, he's not going to be at Colorado very long. Either he's going to be a complete bust at the Power 5 level, or he's going to do very well, and in 2 years he's going to be out to Florida State or wherever.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I think Kenny Dillingham was a solid hire. I think it's going to take a little while for ASU to rebuild. By the way, he's doing a great job restructuring Rich Rodriguez's staff from Arizona. But I think it was a good hire at ASU. I don't think their success is going to happen overnight, although with the transfer portal, it's more likely that they'll be better sooner rather than later. But they also have the sanctions to worry about. But I think Dillingham will be good at navigating them through that. Deion Sanders was a flashy name, and I think Colorado was the kind of program that needed to take a chance with that. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if he's going to be able to get the kind of guys you need to compete at the Power 5 level as opposed to his previous stop where, some 3-star guys who didn't have any other offers just jumped at the chance to play for Deion Sanders.
Kenny Dillingham's brother, Kyle, who I've known for 20 plus years. I went to high school with him and college with him. He's a U of A guy. Really happy for that family. Kyle's a great guy. Was the U of A alumni Phoenix chapter president in the mid 2010s. And I worked with him there as well. Yeah. He is still rooting for the Wildcats. I was messaging with him the other day.
That's gonna be awkward Thanksgiving dinner, isn't it?
He said he's rooting for ASU a lot of the time, but he is rooting for U of A in the Territorial Cup. So I thought that was pretty cool to see. But it's great, good for Kenny Dillingham to get that. I think it's a good hire for ASU long term. Yep. I don't know about the staff he's putting together. A lot of Rich Rodriguez overlap, we'll just say.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not necessarily the most innovative thing either. ASU, I thought you were known for innovation.
Deion, I think, is a really interesting case. I think Colorado will be successful in the next couple of years. But where I think Colorado is going to be hurt, Shane, when Deion leaves, Deion's going to bring in all his guys. When Deion leaves, Deion's going to take all his guys. Whoever takes over that job when Deion leaves in 2 years, a year or two, going to have nothing. Yeah. So this is Colorado that's going to win games over the next few years, I think. And then they're going to be left with nothing when he leaves. This is a short-term hire for a program. I don't think it's a good move for them.
Well, I will say, well, maybe not, but I'll say in terms of PR, it's a great move for the Pac-12. Because the media is going to descend on Deion Sanders in Boulder, Colorado, and give the Pac-12 the coverage that it typically doesn't get, simply because he is Deion Sanders. So from that regard, I don't know if it's a win for Colorado, but it's definitely a win for the Pac-12.
Okay, so real quick here, Shane, the CFP came out. We had some movement last week. I got the Kansas State and USC games correct in that I thought there'd be some upsets. I'm now up 3 going into the bowl games on you and our picks.
Okay.
Your initial thoughts. Do you like Georgia and Michigan big, or do you think there might be an upset among the 2 games?
You know what? I feel like Georgia, Ohio State's going to be closer.
I do too.
I think Ohio State is a tough matchup for Georgia. I know they laid an egg against Michigan, but I don't think that's who they really are. I think Ohio State could actually win that game. I do.
I think they could win the title, Shane.
I do too. I'm not bold. We'll pick them later. We'll get as we get closer.
Yeah.
I think TCU deserves to be in the top 4. I get tired. The Alabama arguments, you can stick them where you can.
Yeah,
stick them,
agree.
Okay?
Yeah,
ridiculous. But Michigan's a better team, and Michigan, I think, will win that game by a couple of touchdowns. The Georgia Ohio State game. I'm sorry, that's not the Fiesta Bowl that you're going to. I hope the Fiesta Bowl is a good game.
I am so bummed, Shane. I'm really bummed. I did not think that was. I wanted to see Michigan, Ohio State, that rematch.
Well, you might, but I was never going to be in a semifinal.
Right. I was hoping it would be. Right.
Yeah. But I think I'm actually, just as a fan, I hope you get to see a great game in the Fiesta Bowl. But I think Georgia, Ohio State's going to be the better of the 2 games.
I think it's going to be a great game. Right now, we will make our picks in a couple of weeks, as you said. I think Ohio State has a big shot to win that game. It's a team that when they get, kind of like the Phillies in baseball, they got in, you're like, this team's not playing that well. And then things happen. So we'll talk about that. All right. Last thing on this program, Shane, it's been a good show. Arizona and Indiana face each other on Saturday in Las Vegas. Who is winning this game? Arizona and Indiana.
It's interesting because, like we talked about, both teams struggled this past week. Both teams did not look good. Indiana losing by 15 to Rutgers, maybe even looking ahead to that game. I don't know. And then Arizona struggling against Utah, and then Cal. I think it's going to be kind of a get right game for both teams. I think it's going to be kind of an even game because both teams kind of go in struggling. I'm interested to see who's going to have the home court advantage. And since it's in Las Vegas, right? In Vegas, I think Arizona's going to have a decent home court edge there. And Wildcat fans travel well as it is. So I would probably lean Arizona to win that game, but after their struggles, they have a week off. I'm really interested to see how they're going to look. I will make this prediction. I will predict, win or lose, that Arizona will have a significant contributor from the bench in this next game. And regardless of the outcome, we'll feel a little bit better about the bench after this game.
Now, I haven't watched a lot of Indiana basketball, Shane. That's a good pick. I haven't watched a lot of Indiana basketball, but Mike Woodson, their coach, former NBA coach, prioritizes defense.
Yeah.
Without kind of looking at their style, I kind of feel like they're like a San Diego State type of team. And we saw what Arizona did with them. If the Wildcats shoot 35-40% from three-point range, they're going to win this game. I think they will. I think the time off will do them good. And I think Arizona wins this game by more than 5.
Okay.
Call me crazy.
Is there a line on the game yet?
No, they don't put the line. You'll get the line that will come out on Friday, probably.
Yeah.
Friday
It'll probably
night.
Be like 2 to 3 points one way or the other.
Yeah, it'll be one way or the other. I think Arizona will win this game by 5+ because I think the shooting will come back. Yeah. Just a hunch. Let's hope my basketball picks are as good as our football picks combined, Shane. Great show. Thanks to AJ Bramlett for joining us. Let us hope that's a victorious week for both the men and women's team. And there's a lot to talk about with the football team and the transfer portal. So for Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. As always, bear down.